Today we're going to talk about ethical investing. Now, what's tricky about ethical investing is that what's ethical for one person just may not be ethical for another person. You may have one person who's really concerned about environmental crises, and you may have another that just doesn't want to have guns or ammunition inside their investment portfolio. So you can see how it can be difficult for ethics to be across the board for everyone. Now, another thing that's important to talk about when it comes to ethical investing is a general term versus a more specific term. Now, ethical investing is similar to things like socially responsible investing or impact investing. It's just a general term for investing along your moral compass. Now, a more specific term is something like ESG investing. That stands for environmental, social, and governance. And those are specific criteria that can help judge an investment's morality, for lack of a better word. And just one quick note, I am not a financial advisor, and this is not personalized investment advice. But ethical investing is a form of investing that factors in a moral code, not just financial returns. So why bother with ethical investing? Well, aside from the fact that you're able to actually put your money where your values are and maybe make the world a little bit of a better place, there's actually some studies out there that show that there may be better returns if you have an ethical portfolio versus a traditional one. According to Morningstar data, 24 out of 26 ESG index funds outperformed comparable conventional funds during the first quarter of 2020. Now, those numbers aren't insignificant, but there's another thing that comes with ethical investing, and that's some concerns about greenwashing. Now, there's been controversy over ethical investments or ESG investments for a long time, and part of that controversy is that people are wondering if they're actually as ethical as they say they are. Now, we did another video on greenwashing, and you can definitely check that out. But a quick overview is that people are concerned that these ethical investments may be doing less than they actually say they are, partly because it's really difficult to measure impact like this. You can't exactly say how many endangered species that you're saving or how many exact pounds of carbon you're taking out of the atmosphere. That's really difficult to know. The industry is still evolving and people are still trying to come up with ways to measure the actual change in the world that investments in ethical investments make. But just because we're not quite there yet doesn't mean that you're doing nothing. So make sure that you read an investment's prospectus. That's a document that can tell you more about the change that it makes. I personally believe that even if you're investing in a company that isn't perfect, if you're investing along your moral guidelines, then that makes a bigger difference than nothing at all. So if you're passionate about clean energy and you invest in a clean energy fund, maybe it only has 1% of fossil fuel involvement, but that's better than investing with a fund that has a 50% fossil fuel involvement. And some people may claim that 1% in a clean energy fund is greenwashing. But to me, that's a 49% difference from a fossil fuel fund. And even if you can't put an exact dollar amount or price point on how much change that you are affecting in the world with your ethical investments, you can know at the bare minimum that your investment dollars are going towards things like infrastructure or hiring new people at these companies that you believe are making a difference in the world. So if you've decided that you want to invest ethically, there's a couple of different ways that you can go about doing it. But first, you're going to have to decide, do you want to do it yourself or do you want help? If you want to do it yourself, that's great. It may involve a little more legwork, but it'll be the cheapest option. Now, there's a couple ways you can do this, is you can go through and you can pick and choose your own individual stocks, or you can use what's called ESG funds, and we'll talk about those a little bit more later. You'll need to have a brokerage account and you'll need to sign up and fund your account before you can start buying investments. Now, if you want some more help, this is a really easy way of going about it, is you can invest with a socially responsible or ethical or ESG portfolio through a robo-advisor. Now, these are online tools that charge a really low fee, typically around 0.25% of your assets under management. That's just the amount of money that they're managing for you. And they will invest for you based on your risk tolerance and other personal factors. And at NerdWallet, we actually have a roundup of all of the best socially conscious robo-advisor providers that you can look through. Now, when it comes to socially responsible investing or ethical investing, there's a lot of different options for robo-advisors, and this is great, but you'll want to find one that has a lower fee and you'll want to find one that matches what you decide is ethical. So make sure that you read through the descriptions of their portfolios. Now, if you want to work with a traditional financial advisor, this will be more expensive. It's typically around 1% of your assets under management, but you'll have the most flexibility with this option. Your advisor will be able to help you pick and choose specific investments and make recommendations based on what matters to you. Investing in ESG stocks or different ethical or moral stocks that you find can require a lot of research. And while that's great if you want to dive into the nitty-gritty, if you want to invest ethically but you don't really want to do all of that homework, ESG funds make it really easy. So ESG again stands for environmental, social, and governance. So these funds are just collections of stocks or other securities in one single investment that you can invest in all at once. This gives you a well-diversified portfolio, partially because there's so many investments in one, and it's also great because they're pre-vetted to make sure that they align with that ESG criteria. So this is an example of an impact report from a socially responsible fund that's available through a socially responsible firm. It's always important to talk about what are the majority holdings of a fund. So on the left is the Domini Impact International Opportunities Fund, and on the right is the benchmark. That's what they compare themselves to. According to this firm, some of the investments in the benchmark index, such as Nestle and AstraZeneca, don't fit in with their ethical investing guidelines. So they take those out and they make another one. You can also see, according to this investment firm, that their portfolio was 40% less carbon intensive than its benchmark. So these documents can really give a good indicator as to what these funds are accomplishing and why they may be a better choice for you than a more traditional fund. If you're wondering if the work of ethical investing is worth your time, then you just need to ask yourself a question. Is it worth the small amount of effort put in to look into something like an ESG fund or a robo-advisor that'll take care of it for you, or not? One pitfall to be cautious of is that some ESG funds or robo-advisors may charge more for a socially responsible or ethical portfolio. Now, one easy way to check this with an ESG fund is to look at the expense ratio. So you can even get into index funds or other low-cost funds for a very minimal expense ratio between 0.1 and 0.2%. Now, you can find some ESG funds with expense ratios as high as 0.5 or even 1%. But you can also find some with really, really low expense ratios. So as long as you do your homework and make sure you're not paying any more than you would for a traditional fund, which you can certainly do, that makes it worthwhile. The ethical investment industry isn't perfect, and it's changing a lot every single year. But if you want to get in and make sure that your dollars are doing what they can, then it's worth your time to invest ethically, especially if you're willing to put in some of the work and make sure the companies that you're investing in align with your moral compass. It may be difficult, but it just might save the world. I'm Alana Benson. I'm an investing writer for NerdWallet. Ethical investing is one of my passions and one of my favorite topics. We actually just launched a whole hub of articles and other resources like podcasts to help you learn more about this. If you learned something in this video, please like and subscribe.